Barbra Streisand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2013 Paganello Mixed Final. In blue, from Canada, Steve French. Featuring number 2, Jon Snow.
Internetové připojení pro servery střižna.cz poskytuje datacentrum Master Internet SRO.
Ooh, hey, trick shots. Can I try one? Oh, must have been the wind.
Olga. Number 8, Basha. Number 9, Bond. Number 10, Surge. Number 11, Sheba. Number 12, Lara. Number 13, Big Max Vitali. Number 18, Tori. Number 21, Yegor. Number 48, Inga. And finally, number 96, Marina.
Ci siamo nel momento delle finali. I campioni russi in maglia verde, Made in USSR contro i canadesi Steve French. 5 minuti all'inizio della partita.
in 4 minutes. In 4 minutes. Attention please, the games are starting in 1 minute, 1 single minute.
We finally made it. Here we are, 2013 mixed final. Paganello, made in USSR from Russia, versus Steve French from Canada. I'm here in the studio, Liam Rosen from Sky Magazine, joined by Tushar Singh
from Canada.
From Canada is going to be helping me out with some of the background information on this Canadian team. So, Tushar, just to start out, because a lot of people Paga are unfamiliar, give me a little bit of background information about Steve French.
Well, Steve French is a maritime province team, which is the 3 provinces in eastern Canada that are New Brunswick, PEI, and Nova Scotia, but composed primarily of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia players. They play primarily grass, as I suspect most of the players here. and they're actually, as you can guess, a pretty strong team.
So Steve French inbounding the pole right now. Good pull. Going to be centered by Gross. Gross will put up a Blady huck deep. It's actually caught by John Snow, who was huge for French in their semifinal game. Snow looking for the dump, gets the push pass over to Gross, and Gross having to lay out to save that one. Gross finally gets the blade. There's actually a collision downfield before the throw. It looks like a nasty collision. So that disc will go back.
I think there's a pick call there. Max ran into
CCS.
Yeah.
So CCS is going to take an injury.
Looks to be okay, but it seemed to be his head, and you always want to be careful on those.
So Captain Darren Clark's going to check into the game to replace CCS. Disc will go back. It's Eric Gross on the far sideline for Steve French with the disc being guarded by Serge. Serge checks in, and Gross now far sideline. Looking up line, puts in the big floaty forehand, and that'll float just out of bounds. The direction of the wind has changed a bit from earlier in the day, so is going right to left on your screen, but almost at a bit of a crosswind, which is not something we've seen at this arena field too many times this weekend.
Yeah, that crosswind there makes it really tricky. So it's coming right off of the Adriatic, and that results in the actual stands creating interesting wind patterns.
So Pasha puts up the huck right away. Hospital pass, lots of receivers there. But good pressure defense from Eric Gross.
Foul called.
Foul called on the throw, so that's going to go all the way back to Darren Clark.
Darren playing Canadian style. They're putting a little bit of pressure, but I think most people are playing a little bit tighter.
Absolutely. So Pasha with the disc now. Players will resume their positions. And disc coming back in. Pasha gets the upline to Max. Max upline again, near far sideline to Serge. Serge thinking about the upline, holsters it. Eventually puts the upline, and Max gets way free from his man. And John Snow, I was thinking there might have been a call because he seemed to just stop on that one and let Max get free, but USSR strikes first, as they are wont to do, as they have done in many of the games. And we've seen so far this weekend, they always start strong. Let's take another look at that again. So you see Max just way open for the easy score for Made in USSR.
Yeah, it appeared Max deked a little, and they'd had a little bit of just kind of rotating over there in front in a bad position, and the defensive coverage didn't think that they'd take that shot there.
So that's Max Vitali, the only non-Russian player on this team. Max has been over to Russia a couple times to play in tournaments. Ended up picking up with a Russian team at Paganello a couple years ago. Then when Made in USSR wanted to come to this tournament, we're short on players. Max was their first choice for a pickup player, so he's been with them now for 3 years running.
Another turn there, unfortunate, just overextending a little bit there, and Willem couldn't grab that.
So that's what Russia counts on, and they will punish every single error. They're both aggressive and very, very patient, playing even better, I think, this year than they were last year, with pretty much the exact same roster returning. So that's centered back to Paga. Paga is pretty much the main handler for this Made in USSR team. Lara with it on the near sideline. Gets the inside break off to Pasha again. And Pasha flips one up, but no receiver there. Just a bit of a miscommunication between Olga and Pasha. And French will pick up and go the other way.
Yeah, that crosswind is really starting to play issues. The stand's actually blocking. It pushes hard during the throw, then kind of levels off, and now it'll actually push it again.
So great hug all the way from CCS to Willem Maassen, the tall man out there on the field. Steve French equalizes 1-1.
Now Willem's actually going to be playing for Toronto Rush this upcoming year, and that's an AUDL team out of Toronto.
So a professional ultimate presence on the field today in the mixed final. It's a couple of other players that will be playing Professional Ultimate that are at Paganello this year as well. So interesting to see that in some of the first years that we're going to see this professional league in the United States. And Paganello obviously still existing, still around, a good outlet for these professional players. And some had theorized in various online magazines that perhaps Professional Ultimate would be sort of ruining fun for the rest of the world. But Tushar and I, we don't think so. We think that players will still be able to go around and have these great spirited tournaments like Paganello, where there's also a high standard of competition.
I absolutely agree. There's no other place in the world where you can come and have an international tournament every year with players for grass and beach, and that it's an important part. Paganello's, I believe, is an important part of maintaining spirit and ensuring that everyone knows each other and can have that conversation at other international tournaments.
So Tali Vasilyev checking the disc in for USSR. Tully swings over to Bond. Bond is fouled on the mark.
Yeah, Tully also a big handler here, plays out of Toronto for GOAT.
Disc check back in. Beautiful layout D from Jon Snow, and how big has Jon Snow been for Steve French this weekend? Darren Clark puts a forehand all the way up and caught by Snow for the immediate bookends. And his team is loving it.
That's a great switch in momentum right here. Tully is heading back out to the line as well. It's going to be a strong line right now, and he's a little bit pissed.
So it's very interesting. Made in USSR is a team that is not used to being down in games. They've really trounced most of the teams that they've faced so far. Again, in the semifinal of them versus Korakota, which was a repeat of the final game last year, they were leading by 2 or 3 the whole time and played a very, very good game. In the game against Ireland, they shot out to a 6-0 lead, so they are not used to being down. It'd be interesting to see how they react here.
Great camera work there. That was a great catching that replay there to show the movement. It was a risky shot, especially because the wind's going to push that back and shorten that pass. So great risk of it being behind the actual player rather than in front.
CCS on the pole for Steve French. That'll be immediately caught and centered into Tully from Bond. Tully's going to huck it deep right away. Not sure about that matchup here. You got the tallest man on the field.
They're having a bit of a conversation right now.
And I believe there was contact, and Yegor saying it was on the hand. I thought there was actually a lot of body contact before the throw, but could be very well that both players are okay with that. So they'll talk about it here, and let's look at this replay.
Yeah, I believe the call is that you hit it out of my hand, and it's most likely to come back. Oh, they're calling it right there.
So no contest, and Yegor will take the disc right from the line. Both players slapping hands. Yegor on the line, dumps back to Nastya. Nastya centers to Tully. Tully upline back to Nastya. Good flow from the Russians, and they pop it in. 2 Bond with the score, equalizing now. 2-2 Russia, Steve French.
I agree with your assessment there, Liam, that was a very risky shot. It's not necessarily the best thing to do this time. But great to, he bodied the Willem out and managed to get that pull in.
Yeah, any team is going to have a tough, deep matchup with Willem Masson. It looks like he's about 6'4", 6'5", skinny, but also very fast and very athletic. So he's been a big help to Steve French all weekend. Made in USSR will set back up. Max Vitali coming back in for them, setting up their defensive matchups.
Max is probably the most passionate or outwardly passionate player on that team. I think we've watched him throughout these, and he's had, what, 2 other games here? And he's definitely visibly frustrated or visibly celebrating. There's nothing in between for him.
Yeah, Max has certainly got that Italian blood and very, very positive guy if you listen to him speak. And he's actually involved in professional Ultimate as well. He's the general manager of the Seattle Rainmakers, who's a Major League Ultimate franchise. And it's really funny actually following his progress over there, living in Seattle. And always has a smile on his face, very, very excited about what he's doing. Players actually going to bring this up and take the brick, so CCS. Centering it in the field. CCS looking for the inside break, finally gets the around break to Jon Snow. Snow finding Gross under. Gross far side, back to CCS. CCS centers to Gross. Gross gets his man off balance, chooses to dump it again to CCS, and Gross loses his footing, but is able to make a dive and catch that disc. Gross far sideline. Gets it in to Delaney. Delaney back to Jon Snow. Snow dumps to CCS. CCS, beautiful inside break for the score for Steve French. And that's the first time they've gotten one of their women involved on the score. So in the game against Ireland, it was all women starting out. For Steve French early, it's been a lot of their male deeps and handlers getting involved. But Lauren Ellis with the score for Steve French.
An important quick point is Lauren Ellis and Denis Thibault actually got engaged on Mount Vesuvius last week. So bit of an interesting week. They actually showed up early to ensure that they didn't get hit by the time change. Got engaged, and here they are, partying it up. Some would say bad timing, but I think it's about one of the best places you can get engaged.
Absolutely. Get engaged and immediately celebrate by getting to the final at Paganello. And this Steve French team we've been seeing all weekend is taking the tournament very, very seriously. They paid a lot of money to come out. It's the first time at Paganello as a team and for pretty much all of their players, so they want to get the best of it.
This interesting matchup right here is Darren Clark and Tully.
And Tully hucks deep immediately for the score. So Yana for Made in USSR receiving the huck from Tully Vasilyev. 3-3 tie game.
So when Darren's played Open in Canada, when he's chosen to play Open in Southern Ontario, he has matched up against Tully previously. They're known quantities to each other.
And that's the most interesting thing about Paganello to me is you can come all the way across the world and suddenly you're on a beach in Italy and you're facing off against someone that you've played against before in your own country. Players here from all over the world, and to me that's just the beauty of international ultimate.
Just perfect huck there on that replay.
So Made in USSR back on their line. Pasha now with the disc, getting ready to pull off. Team staying very, very close here. Remember, this is a longer game, so the Paganello finals are 50 minutes long. So teams have a lot of time to mount some comebacks, get some spacing, and great pull from Pasha. Great defense from the Russians, immediately shutting down all of the options. CCS with it back of the end zone. And CCS pivoting. Very good defense in the Russians. I believe double team was called. And Russia, to their credit, really putting a lot of pressure on. So disc will be checked back in. CCS with it now. Really just needs to get it out and hucks down the field. That will just go out of bounds. And sometimes hucking down and just taking the punt is a better idea than getting stuck in the end zone. But I think that sailed out of bounds quite far down the field, so may not have been the best idea for a punt. And Max Vitali will pick the disc up and run it all the way back to where it went out, which was just a couple meters outside of the end zone.
Yeah, it's once again the wind was strong where he was, but it immediately dies as soon as it hit the stands.
So Max on the cone now. Gets the high release over to Pasha. An interesting throw, not defended by Steve French, but Max using his height on that one to get the high release over, and USSR takes the break. And that all started from that great pull. If you think the sequence of events, great pull comes down, Steve French can't get the first throw off. Russia immediately puts on the defense, leading to the turnover and immediate score.
Yeah, that pull, I think they expected it to roll out of bounds. And in the last few days where the sand has been a bit damper, it'll hit and roll right out. This time, just hit and sat, because we've had 2 warm days now, relatively speaking, at Paga.
Yeah, the last 2 days the weather has been quite good. We had some threats of rain early on in the tournament. It did rain a couple times. Had some nasty games there, but as always, the magic of Paganello for the finals. The sun comes right out as USSR pulling off to Steve French. Pull will be inbounded by Darren Clark. Clark centering over the other side of the field to Mawson. Mawson in to Denis Thibault.
Willem actually has a huge break there, but because of a call on the disc, that run is kind of stopped. Max is back on the field as well, and he looks a little bit winded.
So Willem, as Tushar noted, was way open downfield and still does have a couple meters on his man, but I don't think Thibault will take that option now, and he doesn't. He dumps right back to Darren Clark. Clark, though, takes the option, and Willem laying out but can't quite get to the disc.
Yeah, the touch just not quite there, and it's still adjusting, I think, to these conditions right now. The timeout's going to be called.
So USSR takes a timeout, and all weekend we've seen that Made in USSR's timeout strategy has been very, very impressive. This is a very patient, very calculating team. They know if there's been a couple turnovers in the point, or if they have the ability to go up by 2 points instead of 1, then they will take that timeout, they'll talk it over, and they'll work it all the way back down the field and score.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of defense the Steve French comes out with here. Have you seen them play much zone at all?
I don't believe I have ever seen them play zone, at least not in the 2 games they've had previously on this field.
Yeah, it's been a bit surprising. In my games, at least in the open division, we've only had a couple of teams play zone, and it's been shredded. There just doesn't seem to be enough wind or rain to force any sort of turnover, but that might just be the thing they need at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that zone was played a couple times in the 3rd place women's game by the German national team, and Bullseye, who was their opponents from the U.S., just, as you said, shredded the zone. It was absolutely no problem at all, but the wind is changing a bit. As we've noted before, we have this crosswind, so coming towards the camera a bit and from right to left. So Russia breaking out of the timeout. Crowd getting into it now. Costa Rica starting the dance party as Vitali ready to pick the disc back up.
Darren's a very technical player. He's going to make an adjustment just very quickly there, and then walk over to get the disc.
Vitali picks up. Lara gets open up line and just gets absolutely clobbered. What a bad collision there by Lara from Denis Thibault. And they're screaming for ice, and they'll run to the sidelines and get it. And just an absolutely unfortunate collision. She ran up line, and that can happen sometimes when you're making the upline cut that's unexpected. The cutter from downfield will come over, and it's a bit hard to see in that replay, but she not only got hit right in the face by the Steve French player, but was also rolled over, bulldozed basically by her own player. She does seem, though, to be getting up now.
This would be a pretty serious loss for Made in the USSR if she can't get back into the game, and be pretty unfortunate. But quite a bit of miscommunication there on the cutter's parts, with 2 people really from the ISO in the middle going to the sideline as well, into what we naturally would consider the handler space. She seems to be up and the paramedics are with her.
So Nastya will come on as the sub for Lera. And players recovering a bit from that shock.
Liam and I were moving our headsets a little bit there to listen to Darren and Max chat on the sideline just about 5 meters behind the play. It's back in.
So Nastya upline finds Serge. Serge hits the upline cut again. Nastya centers now to Max. Max far side. Max again. Russia dumping and swinging all over the field. Olga with it now just outside of the end zone. And Olga looking to put it in. Darren Clark laying out, but that's going to be the score from Vitali.
Unfortunately, Willem got pushed a little bit off to the side, so Darren had to poach there trying to recover, and Max took advantage of that for the point.
So the defending champions jumping out to their biggest lead of the game, 5-3 over Steve French. Let's take another look at the replay of that goal. Just a nice backhand, floating little backhand, and Max sort of jumps right there into the end zone.
The Steve French is just a bit more information. I've mentioned it past, but in case you didn't listen to previous broadcasts, they are basically composed, as I said, of maritime players, but these players have played all over Canada. And they go to university typically in Southern Ontario or around Canada and pick up with the teams there, and then take that talent back to develop their local scene. And so you get a very strong program out of the East. In fact, they finished top 3 in Canada in the mixed division. And we suspect that you might see some form of this team at Worlds as well next year in 2014.
And to me, that's one of the interesting things about Canada, just because Canada managed to pick up so much talent for a country with such a comparatively small population. To have a lot of competitive players, a lot of rec players, and Steve French now working it down the field. Delaney with the disc, looking for CCS with the dump. Pretty good dump defense from USSR. CCS controls just outside of the inside end zone, finding John Snow. Snow pops one up to Gross, and Gross hucks it deep. Very, very nice huck. Let's see if CCS can catch up to it, and laying out for that one. And that was an absolutely picture-perfect huck from Eric Gross to CCS for the score.
Great grab there. That effort was just fantastic. There's a bit of a chat and good communication between both teams here. It's been a very friendly final. And that's great spirit from, it's just great to see generally.
And I heard both teams talking before the game. Both of the captains were talking about the spirit in the final and told each other that they want to give the fans a good spirit. I know there was a couple issues in one of the power pool games between Korakota and Steve French that Korakota lost by 1. Korakota, the third place winners at Paganello this year, a very clean team, and felt that Steve French was making a couple calls and fast counts and travels that maybe they shouldn't have. But so far, as you said, to show this game, very, very clean.
Darren with a good pull there, trying to float it in just like the Russians did, and just touches the line as it tails off.
And sometimes it's unbelievable how good of pullers these guys are, especially those that are not used to playing on the beach with the smaller field size, and how much touch they have to just float that disc right into the corner.
Yeah, Tolley and Darren sharing a smile there, but how close it was.
So Tolley back up to the brick mark. Gets the backhand easily over to Bond. Bond gets it in to Yegor. Yegor around to Tolley. Tolley finding Bond far side for the flick break, and Bond puts it in with that fast backhand into Nastya, I believe, for the score for USSR. And very potent, quick offense from the Russians.
Very efficient, and they're on a roll now. Ever since that injury, they might have become a bit more focused. Just kind of change that mentality a bit more. We need to just get this done as fast as we can.
So let's see the other replay. And what impresses me is how quick this backhand was. Just such a nice touch on it into Nastya for the score. So Made in USSR keeps that 2-point lead and goes up 6-4.
Yeah, there's this beautiful wind shadow right now in the middle of the pitch. And then there isn't one in the end zones. And that is really fun to play with because you can move the disc around, but as soon as you take a huck, you know it's going to be different when you actually catch up to it.
And one of the interesting consequences of that fact has been that teams that have lived and died by the huck have had a lot more turnovers than teams that were just able to work it down the field. Now, if you can huck well, certainly that will get you a lot of advantages, but the teams that have played very conservative have so far triumphed in the games on these arena pitches. So CCS will bring it up to the brick mark. Disc will be tapped in. Pivoting, stall count's getting pretty high now. CCS puts up a big blade, and Vitaly gets a hand on it. So all credit to Max, who starts right away with the fast break.
Max has a play style that's very similar to Toli's in that they're very heads up. Toli's been known for some brilliant reads on the disc and Ds just everywhere, and he's shown that a few times this tournament as well.
So Max and Pasha now working in the handler set. Centered back to Max. Max forehand into the front, and good pressure defense from Lauren Ellis. Olga laying out, trying to get that in. Eric Gross, automatic huck, sees Jon Snow going deep, and Snow skies for the score. So Max not able to read that, gets beat deep just by a couple meters.
Yeah, Max a bit frustrated with himself, but refocuses right away to congratulate his opponent. Just great to see that. While Max is known for always being nice.
Yeah, Max, absolutely great spirit and great spirit overall in this game as well. So 6-5, USSR still with the lead.
This is going to be an important point here. This is a point where they need to start getting a break, put a bit more pressure on the USSR, made in the USSR. And so we'll see if they start putting on stronger lines right now.
So here's another great flick huck from Eric Gross, finding Jon Snow, the AU Dale player, wide open in the end zone. Darren Clark on the pull again. So Toli on the line. Toli gets it in to Yana. Yana pivoting every which way, finally gets it back to the middle of the field to Nastya. Nastya upline to Toli. Toli puts it deep right away. That's real Blady. And pretty low throw, and gonna roll right out of bounds.
Just continue to float as soon as it hit that edge of the stands right there. You could probably see it just pop up a little bit. And unfortunately, that's that's a big part of just what's coming off of the sea.
So teams will take their time here. On screen, actually, Willem Masson. Sorry, I made a mistake on that. Masson is actually playing with the Toronto Rush out of the AU Dale, not Jon Snow. Darren Clark walks to the back of the end zone to pick up this one.
Thank you to everyone who's joining us from around the world. We know it's a bit early on the East Coast there. And also, shout out to all those folks, such as Mama Moore.
So, Canadians, I know their friends and family have been following them all weekend as Masson lays out for the save. Looking for Darren Clark for the dump, but it's not there. Great dump defense by Tolly, and Masson forced to punt this one downfield. So all credit to Vasilyev and his dump defense.
Fantastic D there. Both of them have just been matching up, shutting each other down. In this case, Darren was just spun around in one spot a bit too much. If he created a bit more space, he might have been able to get that cleanly. But the unfortunate position is he's also very close to his end zone. Tolly has been a bit further away and had a bit more room to work with.
Noise from the sidelines as USSR picks back up. It's put into Bond. Bond near sideline. Centering to Tully. Call downfield.
Darren's been playing a bit more straight up on Tolly when he's in his own end zone. It might be a change in tactics to prevent the deep huck from Steve French.
So disc will come back in. Tully with the disc now.
Great
It's
break.
a forehand break off to Yegor. Yegor back to Bond. Bond to Tully, and great breaks there. Gets his defender off balance. Tully still with it. USSR being very, very patient. And finally, Tully with the amazing backhand break into Bond for the score. So Maiden USSR goes back up by 2, 7-5.
Steve French had the chance there for the break. Unfortunately, great defense from that O-line. And I think all credit on that one goes to Tully. Taking away the dump, and then the rest of the D upfield taking away any options.
So we'll take a halftime break here at 7-5 in this game to 13. Although players taking the line again. So maybe I'm wrong and they're not going to take a halftime break, but the music has started in the stadium in any case.
It might just be a quick music break.
So quick break here, but players line up on the field again, and that disc is floating way out. And you probably heard the thump there as that landed right on top of the commentator's booth.
We're finally getting involved in the game here on the sideline. Max saying ciao Gemma to his wife.
Max wanted us to get a shout out into Gemma a couple games ago, and I told him no. But even playing in the game, he'll find a way to crawl up to the window and get his word in. So fair play to you, Max.
I think he took advantage of me there.
CCS checking the disc in. Another great dump defense from USSR.
We're seeing Steve French really struggling with what to do after the first cut. And there aren't any options. And that dump cut came just a bit too late.
All credit to Serge on the dump cut. Pasha, though, puts a weird one up, and that's got to be a foul.
Yep, a foul is called there.
And with these strong handlers in the game, anytime you see a throw go up and you think, really? It's generally going to be a foul on the throw.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any contest from the defender either.
So disc will be checked in. Pasha with it. Over to Serge. Pasha sees what he likes. Sees Olga running deep. Olga uses her speed, runs down, and catches that disc right in the far corner. So USSR extending the lead. Goes up 8-5. Capitalizing on the error on that one dump cut of Steve French.
Yeah, that disc just passed by our window here, and it looked a bit fluttery. And it looked like she'd stumbled a bit on the way, but she still managed to catch up as the wind just killed it.
So French needing to make some adjustments here, having a hard time stopping the great mixed play of USSR.
Yeah, and many teams struggle with what's been happening to Steve French now. A little bit later in the game, what is that second cut? What do I do once I've made my cut? There was no continuation there, and I think just great defense and miscommunication and a change of direction in the blind spot.
And music being pumped up, crowd getting into it. This is great to see. This is just the first of 3 finals. After this game, we'll have the women's final and then closing off with the open final as pull goes back up from Max Vitali for Made in USSR.
Drop in the end zone there on the pull. The wind just pushed it down at the last moment, just off the fingertips.
And that's a hard, hard drop when you've just got down 3 points, trying to get back up, but Steve French needs to keep their heads up here and try to get the D on the end zone.
The big guy picks it up.
So Pasha now with the disc. Pasha pops one in.
But there's going to be a pick call.
So disc goes back to Pasha. Disc checked in again. Pasha tries the other side break, and Anton runs it down again. Same play, just a mirror.
Great touch in the wind there. Great touch. They're calling a timeout here. And Made in the USSR are feeling really good. They've been dancing on the sideline before this point. It's really starting to feel it. But they need to maintain focus because this is at the point in the game where they can lose it. And they've done it before. They've lost focus and given up a few points.
Yeah, good timeout call here. Giving up a couple breaks in a row. You just want to stop the flow, stop the momentum, and just talk about what you're going to do to get back in this game. So still lots of time left, and anything can happen at Paganello. As I've been saying all weekend, we haven't seen any huge comebacks yet, but it is always possible.
And Made in the USSR leaving the pitch completely to go behind the stands, or at least between them for a little bit. Actually, I think they've gone over to the medical tent to check on their player.
So Lyra, who was hit in the face earlier, and Made in USSR checking to make sure that she's okay. You can see them in there in the huddle. We certainly hope she is. Meanwhile, crowd getting into the music, having fun here at Paganello 2013. The timeouts are breaking up and teams will take the field again. It's 9-5. Made in USSR, Steve French. These games have a cap of 13 or 50 minutes, so whichever one comes first. So Made in USSR taking a bit more time, gonna do one final cheer here before they take the line.
It's a tough position for any team, but it's not impossible.
Absolutely. I mean, that's only 4 points of differential. The problem is that Made in USSR is just so strong. They've been to the finals so many times before. With 2 previous final appearances, they were the champions last year, and they lost to OPIG in 2011. And so this is their 3rd finals appearance in the row, trying to take home the 2nd straight victory today.
Pull goes up for Max. He's getting a lot of play time in this game. He's going to go OB.
And Eric Gross bring the disc up to the brick. And Gross checks the disc in. Gets the backhand up to Snow. And Snow fouled on the mark. They'll keep playing, though. Nice continuation down here. Darren Clark very near to the end zone now. Not in, though.
Max poaching off. Should have a free handler there somewhere.
And very unfortunate for Clark, was trying to find Delaney deep, but she lost her footing. And Max will huck right away. Olga is wide open. She'll track this one down. No other receivers around, though, and Clark and Delaney will try to adjust. So USSR will take some time. Think about it here. Great D from Lauren Ellis. And good work from French to get it right back after a bit of a rushed throw from USSR. So Gross working now with Clark. Clark puts up a beautiful backhand to Jon Snow, running deep. And there is the score for Steve French.
That's the second time John's gone past Max in this game, at least to my memory. And Max doesn't have the legs to keep up with him right now.
So maybe that's a matchup Steve French should be looking to use later on in the game. All credit, kudos to Lauren Ellis getting that D. Just had the heads up to look at the disc and smack that right out of the way, giving Steve French the fast break opportunity. So they're down 9-6 now, and we'll be pulling off to USSR.
Yeah, they're getting pumped up now. They need a few breaks to get back into this game and matched up.
So you see the shot of that Steve French jersey there. A lot of teams have been asking them all week after the games, what is the origin of the team name? So the character Steve French is actually a character from the Canadian TV show Trailer Park Boys, which takes place in the Maritime region of Canada. It's a very, very funny show. I've watched quite a few episodes myself, and it's sort of a legendary cult show in Canada, but I definitely recommend everyone check that out, and you will understand the origin of the name Steve French.
Yeah, I believe it's season 4, episode 6.
Tushar, obviously the expert on Trailer Park Boys, as Steve French with a great pull, but USSR slowly working it down the field. Bond finding the layout from Tully on the mark, and Tully bumped by CCS. Calls a foul.
Tully not really phased. He's used to this. He plays in Canada and the U.S.
North American Ultimate, known for being a lot more physical than what we're used to in Europe.
Yeah, Tully also has played on Team Canada twice.
Tully attempts to break the mark.
But there's a call. There's a call.
And this may be contested, and CCS does not think so. So not sure at the end if that was contested or not.
I believe it's going to be coming back in at 0. Tully is, or 2 in this case. So it was contested.
So Tully up line to Yegor, but we have another call in the field.
There might have been a violation on that, so they're just resetting very quickly.
Tully finding his place on the near sideline again. Finally breaks up again to Yegor. Yegor guarded by Masin. Yegor dumps back out to Tully. Tully, great give and go with Bond. And Bond sort of a bullet forehand to Olga. And that's the second time he's found her there in that end zone. So USSR goes back up 10-6.
Just very quickly, the origin of Steve French. There's an episode where 3 main characters are surprised because their field, which grows dope, is being ravaged or being eaten by something. Turns out to be a cougar or a mountain lion, which might be different depending on your terminology, has been eating the dope and is now addicted to the dope. Bubbles, who's one of the primary characters, ends up and loves cats, decides to adopt and put the kitty cat through rehab. Names him Steve French because the whiskers remind him of a Frenchman.
So, amazing backstory on those uniforms. Not every Ultimate team can claim to have such a storied history, I guess, of the name of their team. Certainly not made in USSR, who's obviously name, as would indicate, fairly evident. They are players from Russia. But I do just love these jerseys from Steve French. I wouldn't mind trading to get one of them myself, with the picture of the feline there on the front and the scratches on the back.
A quick note there, the flip of the disc by a man wearing the rabbit ears all in orange. That's Pipo. He's one of the tournament organizers and one of the most recognized faces here. You'll see him every year.
Darren has the disc checked in. Clark up line to Ellis. Ellis doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the girls on this team. And Snow is found again, and they are loving that matchup. As I suggested, they need to take advantage of it. Clark to Snow, and Steve French puts their 7th point on the board.
Once again, that was a Snow versus Max Vitali matchup. And each and every single time, it's not a clean reception that's going in. It's either floaty or, as you'll see in this case, it's a bit tougher to get to. So that just great grab in that case, and Max was much closer on that one.
And Snow just doing so much for them in the end zone. He was very big in the couple arena games we've seen from Steve French already that were live streamed earlier yesterday and the day before. And for me, so far, he's just been the absolute MVP of this team, just coming down with every disc. Great defense. So we'll see if they can abuse that matchup a bit more to get them back in this game. Massin, the big man, on the pull for Steve French. And their last couple pulls have floated way out of bounds.
This is not good for Steve French. They shouldn't be burning time right now. They need to be getting those breaks.
Just about 3:45 left on the game clock. So Paga Cop rules will apply. That means for anyone unfamiliar with Paga that you add 2 to the final score of the game. And Tully giving a hi mom to the camera. Lots of players, friends and families watching this stream.
It's nice to be able to get Ultimate live cast, so we can connect with all those not here.
Absolutely, and the best thing about it is it's free, so those of you watching haven't had to pay anything for this, and we know there are lots of viewers all around the world. There's going to be a call on the field.
So I believe a pick was called, so it's going to be going back to just before this play. The stream is particularly important because there's quite a bit of stats keeping going on. This is an ECBU year, and we know that there are Portuguese captains at the very least and others who are back home watching and marking down the plays of the opposition teams.
It's actually interesting. Earlier today, Ireland mixed was 4 times on the live stream so far, and one of their players was saying to me, "Oh, great! Now everyone in Europe's gonna know how we play." I got a kick out of that one.
I got a kick out of your accent there.
So Tolly with a great grab over CCS. CCS into Bond. Yegor back to Tolly. Tolly getting fouled on the mark. Throws through it. Nastya now with the disc. Nastya inside break. Beautiful, but USSR is not in yet. They'll try to flip it in here. And Bond has been great in the end zone.
Great confidence there on that lefty backhand off the pivot. Great cut as well, but I believe it's Anya.
Yana.
I apologize. Yesterday we were, or at least some of my teammates were cheering her on in the games that they've had in this arena.
And I just want to say one thing about that last point is very interesting. USSR has scored a lot of them recently right on the end zone line, and their patience on that line has been incredible. Just the ability to get those nice short throws in. The timeout will be taken, by the way. So USSR up 11-7. Some of the fans on the sidelines carving out a nice little spot for themselves. You can see this young man here enjoying the sun that has come out for Paganello 2013.
It's typical that when it gets warm, you dig yourself a sand couch and you have a nice little sit. Now, if we get to see that replay for the point again, I don't know if we will, but in the lower left-hand corner, you'll actually see Tolly and I believe, it's CCS maybe?
CCS, yeah.
Actually shaking hands. Basically, almost, he kind of just knew, oh, it's almost over. They were getting ready to shake hands right as soon as it's done, and that's been with a lot of good hard marking the whole point. And I think it's just a little bit of, thanks for taking that and not calling foul. And totally just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Great thing about Ultimate self-officiating, we get to call our own advantages as needed rather than relying upon a referee.
And the spirit here at Paganello has just been absolutely great. It's one of the pluses about European Ultimate for me is there's very, very clean games and very, very good spirit as defined in the rules of Ultimate. Most important thing is spirit of the game, and Max getting his boogie on the field as USSR lines up after that timeout.
Yeah, I'm just watching Super Hot Pot warm up in the background of this game. You might be able to see it right now on your screen, or it just went off behind that tent.
And that final will be up next after the mixed final. Pull will go up and just float right out of bounds.
Looks to go OB again. That one collected by Davide before being sent back onto the pitch. And given all the posts yesterday, most of you on the stream are well familiar with Davide.
And Davide had a great game in the third place game that was streamed earlier today, leading his team to victory over Chicago Scandal. So Cusp have got to feel good about that. Olga playing some great poach defense, and one might wonder if that distracted Steve French enough to allow USSR to just get an uncharacteristic drop out of Eric Gross on that one. So Max picks up and puts the disc right over to Pasha. Pasha seeing Surge.
Now, if we get to see that replay, I believe they actually went to a zone there on D. And a pick call. And it's going back. Max is directing it. There's basically no contest. But I believe Made in USSR went to a zone there.
Yeah, it did look very zony. Some communication downfield is disc checked back in, and timeout will be taken. And as we mentioned before, USSR are very strict with those timeouts. Time is now over, so they've now taken the timeout that's in the cap.
Yeah, I believe they wanted to get that disc going in flow, and given the sideline position there and the coverage that's on the field, a stack-up field of two ladies and Max, it requires a bit more communication, especially if you have a language barrier for one of your downfield players.
Right. So both teams will circle up to talk about this one. Made in USSR in the lead 11-7, and we're going to have to double check on this one if time expired during this point.
I saw some indications from the organizers that it might be a game to 12, in which case this timeout makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Right. And we just went outside to check. Some of the players wanting to know as well what the game would be to, and it will be a game to 13. So both of the teams now in the cap.
Yeah, you want to ensure that you get this point because a couple of breaks can really take the steam out of you.
Surge with it, big swing all the way over to the other side of the field, and there was a call downfield.
Pick call. Max's cut came in a bit of a hard angle and caused a run through a player in the stack. Liam just listening in on the conversation that's happening right now, and totally mentioning and saying a few things and saying send it back, and then great bit of intervention there from the sideline. I think more players need to do that, is tell their own players what's going on. Too often we just stand by and let something incorrect happen.
And Tolly is the captain of this team. Surge gets it back into Max, so same throw there. Max back to Surge. Pick call downfield.
It's a very messy end zone right now. There's not much spacing between the players, and especially with the Steve French players poaching a little bit.
So disc is now checked in. Another pick, I believe, downfield, and they really need to organize the end zone, like you said, Tushar.
Might be a miscommunication and a violation on the start timing as well.
So Max back to Surge. Surge, beautiful inside break. D by Darren Clark. And that's the type of play that Steve French needs. Clark immediately into Gross. Gross sending it deep, likes that matchup again. Skied by Snow for the score, and the crowd goes wild.
Max incredibly frustrated with himself there. That's a 4-0 matchup, but he's getting closer every single time. This is something that he can win, and it's possible during this final that it would actually happen.
So Gross, very good eye to see Snow, who's just doing everything deep for Steve French. So we are in the cap again, game 213, 11-8, made in USSR, currently leading, and they will receive the serve on this next point.
Music getting the crowd going again. I love it when it's sunny like this.
There's nothing better than Paga finals in the sun. Still not as warm as maybe some would like it to be, about 13 degrees on the pitch here, but enough for some to take their shirts off and start exposing some skin. That's always nice to see on the ultimate field as well, guys and girls. And nice pull, but we'll just go out of bounds. Bond will pick up at the brick. So almost every pull recently on this right side of the field has gone out of bounds.
It's really tricky. If you try to get it back to the middle a bit too much, it might actually just go out the back, in which case you have the same result.
Bond checking the disc in. Bond puts it deep right away. Masson is there. And Anton gets a hand on it but can't make that catch. That just came down a bit too blady. So CCS with it now. Looking for a receiver, any receiver. Clark now with it. Clark back to CCS. Stack now real deep for Steve French. Not much happening downfield. Willem now is wide open, but Clark just can't get it to him for whatever reason. Finally finds him for the inside break. Masson sends it deep. Likes that matchup, but it's just going to come in a bit too blady. And all credit to Samantha Peveril deep. Actually got a hand on that very, very top disc.
Steve French needs to put on a hard D here. The made in the USSR players are a little bit winded. They've had a few back and forths. And this is where they can get that D, but Willem as well looking a bit winded. Darren, fresh though.
So Tolly finds Yana on the right-hand side. Back to Tolly. Tolly, big swing over to Bond. Bond finds the inside to Kisley. Anton. Anton's got the big man on him as a mark. Layout D! And beautiful playing so far from Peveril. That's the first D we've seen from her. Great reactions to get that D, and that's what French needs to get a couple of breaks back in this game. So Darren Clark on the sideline, and French will take their timeout. I like that timeout. So both teams with one timeout in the cap, and I think some would say maybe you wait and see if you get the point here and then take it, but really I think it's very, very tough, because if you get scored on here, then you've only got 1 point to go. So a very good decision to take the timeout here and talk about it, and Steve French getting down, staying loose, having a bit of a dance party there in their huddle. They're going to let the 5 players on the field talk about what's going on in the game. So Made in USSR in their huddle. Bit of a dance-off as well. Both teams just letting the players that are on the field talk about the play, which is a very North American style of how to manage your timeouts. When I first arrived to Europe myself, I was a bit confused about that. I actually thought there was a rule that only the players that were on the field could be involved in the timeouts, and when people were asking me to join the huddle, I was saying, no, that's not allowed. But I do like it because it just gives the emphasis, the focus on only the players that are on the field to sort of design a play and design a defense. So you see Costa Rica there, home team from Rimini on your screen going hard.
Every day I'm shuffling.
And Clark will pick the disc back up. Clark guarded by Tully. Fouled on the mark.
Big point. Make it 11-9.
And it was an interesting clear out from CCS. Not exactly sure what happened there. Finally does find Delaney up line, and Delaney puts it in. And Peveril, huge point for her. She did everything. She almost got the hand in the disc down in the end zone. She got the D, and she scores the point. So Steve French gets one more on the board, still down 11-9 to Made in USSR.
Yeah, Russia doesn't look like they're particularly phased at this point in time. That's good to see from them. They still got the focus. They just need to play this out, get 2 more on the board, and they're done. Steve French, need 4. So lapse in coverage there. Unfortunate that they got broken like that at that point in time.
Both teams taking some time on the line to talk about the matchups, talk about what's happening. Steve French is on serve. Now USSR will be receiving. And Maassen, big pull. That will land out of bounds, and almost every pull from both teams now landing out of bounds with much consistency.
Yeah, just a nice big float, and then just got pushed out right at the end. It looked like it was going to come down just inside on that corner. And I think teams are basically happy to allow this brick mark setup, primarily because it allows the defense to actually catch up and get set as well.
Yegor with it on the sideline into Tully. Tully sends it deep, and Bond is wide open, lays out with the clap catch for the USSR score. Gross unable to catch up, so USSR, one of the 2 points they need to finish the game, and they are very, very happy about that.
Very tricky. Neither team's concerned about time at this point. We've got plenty of sunlight left. We just underwent our time change a couple weeks ago. And these Canadian players actually getting their second time change in a month.
So now it's tough, and Steve French has done everything they can to get back in that game. Is still in very good spirits. They're going to put on a very, very strong line here with some of the players that have just been doing everything for them in this game. So game to 13, currently 12-9.
Max Vitali back on the pitch. I think there's that big photo from last year as he's catching the disc in the end zone for the win.
Yeah, scored the final point for Made in USSR. Very exciting final. Made in USSR was up big. 10-3, I believe. Korakota went on an amazing comeback and actually took the lead 11-10 in the game to 12. But came back, did Made in USSR, scored the final 2 points, and Max there to receive the final point in the back of the end zone. So pull goes out of bounds.
Just out of bounds, but one of those ones that made the entire offense adjust and pause and just gave them a little bit of a thought that, oh no, we're stuck in our back of our end zone again.
So CCS checks the disc in. Breaks over to the side to John Snow.
Both ladies cutting downfield right now. 3 male handlers.
Snow.
Darren now going to be on streak, as well as Snow. Once again, that matchup with Max, but it's not coming deep this time.
Clark is wide open for the throw and finds Snow in the end zone. It's going to go out of bounds. And that would have been another matchup. And that was very, very clearly out of bounds. And thinking about maybe the push. Snow was wondering if maybe he was pushed, but sideline saying no.
And it was OB. On that one, Snow actually just pointed deep and said, send it to me. Send it to me. Just called for it because he knew he would get it. And if Darren had just brought that in a bit more, yes, he would have had it. Going the other way now. Looking to Huck. Up, it's short.
And Max wow, unbelievable pickup from Pasha. I thought Darren had the catch D on that.
No options upfield. Some call.
And that was just an amazing catch by Pasha. I thought for sure there were 2 Steve French defenders in the way when Max sent up that very, very low huck. But Pasha somehow warping the fabric of space and time to make the catch and bring it down.
Just great grab. I think all of us thought that Darren was going to grab that one. And Pasha just driving for it.
I'm not sure what they are discussing out here on the field because this call came at a very odd moment. It was 3 or 4 seconds after the catch.
Yeah, totally on the field now to help with translation.
So we'll wait and see what the result of this one will be.
I think maybe a fast count with a stall down.
Yeah, reading his lips, I think Darren is saying fast count.
Well, it's saying that I said these particular words to stall the disc down. Totally in a tough position here. There's a bit of an imbalance there in terms of number of people involved, but you do have Darren as the captain there, so you're relatively okay.
It's a shot of the Irish team there in the stands, the 4th place winners. And fair play to those lads, came into the tournament seeded 20th, made it all the way to 4th, losing to Korakota in the 3-4 game that we featured earlier in the day, and now taking a much-deserved break. And watching this mixed final is the discussion still going on here between the 2 captains. So
coming at 8.
Stahl will come in at 8, and a bit surprising because I didn't know that much time had passed between the catch and the stall.
I think that's what the call was. He called it down.
Violation called.
All right, he'd called it down, and Pasha had probably said fast count. And that's where it got cleaned up, and so it came in at 8.
All right, so Pasha checks the disc in. Pasha sends up a big, big floaty disc, but interestingly enough, Peveril had position but didn't make much of an aggressive look for it, and Olga, I thought, was almost going to run in behind her and come up with it, but I guess it was well out of bounds.
Sideline being cleared there, or at least asking for clearance. Darren's gone now, and here comes a big huck to him.
CCS, and Darren beats his man, but not a good huck. And the disc comes down and goes way out of bounds. And that's the second or third time that's happened for
Steve French, yes.
Steve French. They've had good huck opportunities. Their men have been open, but the hucks just haven't gone. So Pasha now controls again in the center of the field. Pasha now tries a huck of his own.
And it, quite honestly, he's being matched perfectly there by Snow. I believe that is Snow, is that?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
So Max being matched by Snow there, even though he had a 2 or 3 foot head start, Snow was going to be there with him for that D. How amazing would that be if Max grabs that point now?
Yeah. Darren Clark walking back to the disc, and Clark will start off right away. CCS now with it. CCS looking for those downfield cuts, finds Snow. Snow, this time Hucks and Clark now with lots of space. Clark with the grab.
And Pasha actually covering.
Big mismatch, actually. Clark was defended by Olga, so Steve French stays alive. 12-10, game to 13.
Yeah, CCS there. Great outcut. Darren had a simple flip to him, but it's tricky in this wind as well. It can just die, so you have to make sure you get the right height on that.
And Steve French is absolutely stoked to be staying alive and still be in this game. They're now on serve to Made in USSR, so Made in USSR, all they have to do is just not turn the disc over and put it in the back of the end zone to finish this game off.
Steve French now need to score 3 in a row, 3 breaks in a row, and they've got the win. Admittedly, it would seem like a more difficult task, but when you're a little bit uncertain as a top-level team, that's all the edge the other team needs. But Toli's on the field. Sit.
Massin pulling off. And Denis Thibault on the field for Steve French. That's number 91. Haven't seen much of him in the game so far. One of the leaders of this team. Just recently engaged, as Tushar mentioned at the start of the game. So good luck to him.
Absolutely. Luck is needed. But they're from the East Coast. Pretty sure they'll be okay.
Totally walking the disc up.
Asking for it to be counted.
So Tolly with the disc in now. Tolly finds Yegor underneath. Yegor puts the disc deep right away. Bond is there.
Denis with a great touch.
Beautiful bid from Denis Thibault. And very strange. Hasn't been playing the last 6 or 7 points, but comes in there and gets a good D on Bond.
That's a fantastic D. I mean, both him and his fiancée have played really well this game.
Gross.
There might be a travel call here. Yep. So there's a travel call here, and considering the distance that they were off, that's a legitimate call. When that catch was made, the crowd exploded. Definitely excited about a close game here.
And boo is coming from the stands, but honestly, that's not really needed. Most of the crowd with no perspective on that call, and from our position, that was a legitimate travel. They're standing
2 meters.
Yeah, they're standing just in front of us in the box.
Yeah, there's a lot of coverage, and then basically a 1 to 2 meter travel based upon all the pivoting that was happening. So that huck is a viable option again, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a pity and ultimate for the disc to have to go back, but that's what you have to deal with in this self-refereed game. So Gross with it now. Gross now gets the inside backhand break. A bit of a tough throw, and that's going to be D'd. Foul called on the throw.
Yeah, as you said, it's one of those throws that goes up. Immediately you have to go through and question, and absolutely that was an IO was attempted there, and absolutely the foul came through. But that's got Tolle thinking about both directions now.
So Gross takes the swing this time over to Maassen, far side of the field.
Denis is
Maassen
gone.
now hucks and finds the receiver in the end zone. That's Delaney. Delaney now with the disc. Delaney dumps over to Maassen. Maassen, very tight mark, fakes the hammer. And hammers over the top. Not a great decision. Actually, there was a foul on the throw. I thought it did look like one.
And on the catch, unfortunately, maybe she's winded, or just a little bit of a collision.
That's Leanda Delaney.
The women's final teams continuing to warm up. They were watching from the sideline. But as Liam said earlier, coming up next.
So Massey centers to Gross. Gross hammer over the top to Massey, who gets free in the zone. And crowd cheering. They're wanting the upset. 12-11, game to 13.
That started with Denis. Great D. Just touched it. Protected himself and the other player. That's one of those fantastic Ds where you know the player's thinking about more than just what's happening right there. Great heads-up play.
So Made in USSR will put on another offense line, getting ready to receive again.
I think there's much credit also due there to Russia for just shutting down that end zone for so long and trapping them in the corner.
Absolutely, and eventually they try the hammer twice. Maassen ends up getting free. So Steve French preparing to pull off CCS. Big backhand pull.
Oh, bit of confusion here between the two handlers, but not really much of an issue.
Tolle ends up bringing it in. Tolle hucks right away deep. He sees Olga deep. What a great disc, and Olga catches it for the win. Made in USSR repeat as Paganello champions off the two-throw score.
That was a great called play, great horizontal set, and just the amount of power Tolle has to keep a blade going with that much control full field.
Amazing huck. Let's take another look at that one. Olga running it down, and Made in USSR takes the win, 13-11. Steve French has to be very, very proud of their progress in this tournament coming in, never having been to Paga before, and I'm sure they want us to give a shout out to all of their friends and family watching from Maritime back home. So salute your boys and girls and give them props for making it to the final and losing it just by 2, putting up a very close game, almost getting the comeback there at the end, but Made in USSR the experience to take it out. So we'll be back with you shortly for the women's division final.